Right, welcome to this discussion video. It's about 9th edition. Been really chewing over the subject for a good while. What changes I would make to 9th edition to improve it. So the changes that I'll propose here in this video are quite extreme, but I think it would improve the game. Of course, you're welcome to leave your own comments and feedbacks. Do make use of the comment section below for this video. It'd be fascinating to hear the feedback from others with the points that I'm going to make. So, for 9th edition, my position on it at the moment is that it's become extremely bloated with lots of rules. Not bad rules as such, but so much stuff that it becomes a game of just constantly checking books and forgetting rules and just being overloaded with so much stuff going on. It's not just it's not so much the rule book actually, but it's more the missions and the codexes have really bloated the game. I think that's a generally shared opinion across the board. Did a survey on, or a poll on the channel a number of months ago, asking me what was the most annoying things about 40k at the moment. Number one is still the price. It's about half the people said price is still the main issue. But after that, above all the other issues, was the bloating of the rules. They've just become so overloaded with rules that it does sap away from the enjoyment of the game. So my position at the moment is still really enjoy 40k. Absolutely love the models. So I'll just briefly cover the other aspects. So painting and hobby for me, absolutely fantastic. Love the models that Games Workshop are producing. The projects that they're coming out with at the moment, they are listening to the community. The quality of the sculpts is incredible. So on that level, 10 out of 10 for Games Workshop. It's my opinion. I think they're doing a fantastic job. And excited, very excited to see the future sculpts and projects and units and so on that come out in the realm of Warhammer 40,000. Then, as far as the way the game plays, I'm still enjoying playing the game, but there are some things that are sapping the enjoyment from the game and slowing it and dragging it down. So I'm going to try and address those here in this video. And really it's something where I'm also trying to think of if Games Workshop transition over to 10th edition, you always have that problem of out-of-date codexes and rules becoming obsolete in the older books. It sort of makes them obsolete. So I'm trying to compensate for that, and the suggestions that I'm going to make as well. You'd be able to continue using your older books even if you move into 10th edition with the changes that I'm going to propose here in this video, despite the changes being pretty drastic. So what I would say is the actual mechanics of the game, we'll get into the other aspects in just a moment, but the actual way the game plays, your core rules, in my view, are fine. So we'll talk about command phase in a moment, but movement phase, just haven't encountered really major problems with it. So not going to dwell on that too much. Really all seems fine. I haven't really stumbled across any real problems. Psychic phase, again, no problem. Shooting phase, again, no problem. I wouldn't say any of these phases for 9th edition have been a problem. And I would agree, as far as when Games Workshop brought the rules out for 9th edition, one of the best sets of rules for 40k in my opinion. Again, I haven't really come across any major problems. There's some slight tweaks perhaps for flyers to make them a bit harder to hit perhaps, but smaller stuff really. Charge phase fine, combat's fine, all makes sense. And morale, different mechanic to previous editions, but it's worked alright. Really, sort of losing individual models as a whole unit's breaking away, they could change that around, but not a major issue. So as far as those things are concerned, fine. Going into the extra rules like actions, seems alright. You just perform an action, follow the rules and the direction for that, not a problem. But there are some changes. Those core rules, fine, and hasn't really created a problem, so the game plays nicely. But 3 changes here, just to make the current edition, 9th edition, better, or if Games Workshop move off into 10th. So I've got 3 quite basic but quite drastic changes that I would introduce into the game, and do so in a way where potentially you could bring these changes in and the books would still be semi-relevant. You could continue using your current codexes until they get updated. So the first thing I would change is to, number one, is dump the command phase. So I've dropped the command phase entirely, removed that in its entirety from 9th edition. So any extra rules that are currently in the command phase, say for Necrons for example, you start dishing out some buffs and bonuses from some of your leaders, I just shift that over into the start of the movement phase. So where it says in your command phase, just shift that over to at the start of the movement phase. The idea is that you're playing, just notice the way the game plays. It used to be for 40k, right, it's my turn now, and you just go straight into movement. But now you've got to go, right, it's the command phase, I can do this, this, and this, and so on, and then I think it's a better idea, just dump the command phase. It's hardly used, there's not much going on in the command phase anyway. And anything that does take place in the command phase, just shift it into the start of the movement phase, and just lump those two together. So now you can just go straight into movement phase, and any abilities that have to be done, like command abilities, you just declare those at the start of your movement phase. So dump that phase and just go straight to movement. There were some editions, I think it was 7th edition, I think it was 7th. The game was, back in the day, it was where you could play, if you knew your codex well enough, you could play a game of 40k and hardly look at the rulebook or codexes. You just knew the rules, it was just your models, your stat lines, and you knew the core rules, no problem, and there wasn't much consultation with books taking place at the moment. That's what's bloating and slowing the game down. I'll talk a bit more about this as we come to the other points. And so I'd love to see a return to that simplified version of 40k, sort of cutting off the baggage that's slowing the game down as you're playing it. There's certain elements that are slowing the game down, just creating a headache because it's just like an overload of information and rules that you can use. But one of the simple changes I'm going to suggest here is just dump the command phase, get rid of that entirely, and then just shift it over into the start of the movement phase. So if you think that creates a problem with the way the game operates, any glitches with that, then do leave that in the comment section below. But I think that's quite doable. That's not a huge change, it's the smallest change that I'm going to suggest here in this video. And really want to move on to number 2, which is one of the big ones. So, this is going to be controversial. I would dump stratagems, I'd dump all of them and get rid of them. I've thought about what to do, whether to, you see, if you, how do you sort through, if you're going to keep some, it's going to be a real mess. And so the problem is with stratagems, and see if this relates to your own games 40k. You're playing a game 40k, and you've got a situation where you need your units to do well with shooting, close combat, and you think, oh, I need stratagems to help. So you go over to your book, and you say, right, I need to check the stratagems. So you go through your codex, and you look up all the stratagems, and you check through, what was that stratagem? I can't remember what it was, and you're searching for it, and you go, oh, hang on, there's another stratagem that's in a supplement book, and you go to the supplement book and then look for that. And then you think, well, should I use this stratagem or not? And then you think, well, maybe I haven't got enough command points. So you check your command points, and then you think, well, maybe I could combine this stratagem with another stratagem, and you go and check 2 stratagems, and then you lost where is it again? You flick around the pages, and all of a sudden you got your head buried in a book in the middle of a turn, and so that can become tedious for both players. It's annoying because you want to find out what the rules are you're entitled to use, and that's fine, but it slows the game down. Your opponent's waiting as well, and so it's just adding a whole lot of extra stuff that really, if you could just not worry about your stratagems and you could just leave, I know some of the abilities are really good, but if you could dump that whole mechanic, you'd just be then having the main rules and your abilities that are found in your codex, and that's it. So you could say, right, my particular unit here is going to shoot, and what is that ability? And you just turn to your codex, you look up that unit, and all the extra rules are there in the notes for you. You don't have to go searching through for stratagems and different pages, but it's all there in the unit entries for you. So what they could do with some of the stratagems is shift those abilities that are a stratagem and just put them in the unit ability instead. So they're fixed and they're there, and you just use them whenever you need to. And then other stratagems, there's a lot of stratagems out there that are so minimal and a waste of time that they're never used, hardly ever used by people anyway, so they wouldn't be missed if they were gone. So that's the change that I would make. If to really simplify things, the best option would just be to dump them entirely, just have no stratagems at all. Let us know if you've tried that in some games of 40k, and if it has made a difference to the flow and the enjoyment of the game. It'd be fascinating to hear that from anyone that's already experimented with that in games. So we'll do an example. Say you've got your Aldari Codex and you've got your units. Let's say it's a Wave Serpent. So you're looking at the Wave Serpent, looking at your stat lines, there's your all gear up, there's your abilities. So that's where I would put the stratagems. But you say, I'm sure there's a stratagem for Wave Serpents. You say, right. So then you stop the game, you say, right, I'm going to look this up here. So then you're flicking for a huge book, and I think this is it here, and then you go, right, so it's in here somewhere. So then you're looking around for the Wave Serpent keyword. I can't remember what the ability is, but I'm sure there's one. I'm just going to do this as if it's middle of the game here. No, it's not there, it's not there. Aircraft, no. Shield discharge. Is that it? Serpent shield or Wave Serpent. There you go. So it's not even in bold. So it's that one there. So then I read through all that ability, and then is it that ability? Select one your model from your got Serpent shield or Wave Serpent shield. Yeah, so I can use that. You read off all the abilities for it and play the CP, and you deduct the CP, and so on and so on. So that's one stratagem, and that's just taken, it's like a couple of minutes out of your game just to go through that, look it up, play it, and so on and so forth. Well, what if that was just in there? There's no CP to worry about, there's no searching for the stratagem and all that kind of stuff. You just go straight in, and the ability is there or it's not there, and that's it. So I think that's a lot simpler. It just cuts that whole mechanic out of the game. Stratagems are okay as a novelty when they first came in. It's good fun, playing a few stratagems here and there. But now you're starting to get a real just avalanche of stratagems. There's just so many of them. And the thing is, when you're playing a game, you don't want to miss out. If you've got an ability that's going to help you, then rightly so, you're going to look for it because you don't want to be at a disadvantage, and it could really help you out in a situation. So instead of people, if I said we'll just cut down to half the stratagems, people are still going to be looking in the book searching for the stratagems. So instead, I just say cut stratagems out, look it up in your unit, abilities, and then that means that for memorization for games, you're just learning about your particular units and what their abilities are, and that's it. There's no extra stuff buried in here for you to try and find. So I think that would simplify things a lot, and it would make a huge difference. But let us know if you've tried experimenting with that already. It'd be fascinating to hear what people have done with games, or if you haven't experimented, whether you think my idea about dumping stratagems is a good idea or not. So that is quite a drastic change. I do understand it's a big enough change for sure, but stratagem seems to be one of the main things that's slowing the game down. There's another issue that I'm going to come to later on, but as I said, I'm trying to preserve the main core part of the rules because I think they're fine, they work okay. I wouldn't really, for 10th edition, I don't know what Games Workshop are going to do, but whether they're going to propose big shifts in the way the game plays or not, because I can't see any areas where it's particularly broken at all, so I don't think that's where the problem is. It's more of the overload of stuff. Another area, which I haven't made it into a point here, but the other area is your army abilities and so on. It's got a little bit complex, a little bit extra stuff to remember, but it's not too bad. The other thing, which I'll just give a mention, but actually haven't put on this list, is warlord traits and relics. I wouldn't really see much need to drop that because, yes, there's a lot of them, but it's pre-game, so you're selecting all that stuff, like adding it to your list. So as far as the game, playing your game is concerned, it's not really going to slow it down too much because you pick your 1 or 2 relics or 1 or 2 warlord traits, whatever you're going to do. You've got those in, just a little rule, and then that's it. You're not, whereas with stratagems, you can be picking any of the stratagems throughout the game, and so that's where you have to keep going back to the book and so on. But if you've got a simple warlord trait, it's +1 to the hit rolls for your warlord. It's not a big deal. It's not really going to have much impact on the game. So the variety, as far as that's concerned, I can't see a problem with that. Can't see it diminishing from the game too much. So that kind of area is no problem. I'm going to go for I'm playing BL10 at the moment. The rules for them seem quite straightforward. 3 inches minimum for your battle focus roll. 1s and 2s count as 3s. That's quite straightforward. You can reroll a single hit roll and resolving that attack for shooting or fighting. Nice and easy. That's my army rule, and then away I go, and that's fine. So I can't see that being a problem. I take natural leader. I think that's the one that I use. Reroll hit rolls. Again, nice and straightforward. But then with that comes all these extra rolls for the different craft worlds that you want to choose. But I'm not going to be consulting with these during the game because I'm not running those at all. So it hasn't really created much of a problem. The variety, a little bit of depth, a little bit of lore and fluff going along with it is fine, so I can't see that being a problem. But stratagems, on the other hand, there's too many of them, and you're constantly referring back to the book. And then you've got now supplements continuing on with stratagems. You've also got stratagems buried inside your chapters or craft worlds and so on. So then you go, to make it even worse, you've got you got stratagems here, and you go, oh, maybe it's not in here, maybe it's unique to my craft world, where is it? And you have to look it up, and you go, here it is, and then it's there, and so on. So I think it's just complicating, bloating the rules. As someone has said, 40k has become the game of rules that you forget, which is just like so much stuff to remember, which is a shame, because I'm thinking of, I've been playing 40k for years. What about the new people coming in? There's just the amount of stuff they have to learn. And I wonder how many people have just been put off and gone to another gaming system because they've said, well, this is just way too complicated for me to get into, and maybe it's something I'll try out at a later date. It's such a shame because the models are amazing, the lore, the actual standard rules are absolutely fine as well. People can easily get into that, but it's just this extra stuff, I think, which is causing the problem. So leave your own comments and feedback in that regard. Fascinating to hear what people have to say. Maybe you strongly disagree with me about stratagems. They're a vital part of the game, but my position would be just to dump them entirely, to shift out some of those stratagem abilities and just put them into unit entries. Or the other option is to keep the variety that stratagems offer and put a limit on stratagems. So if you go down that route, you keep as much variety as you want, but what you're doing is you're shifting stratagems from the middle of the game, where you might need them at any point, and flicking through the book, and shifting them to a pre-game choice. So before the game begins, pick, say strike full size game, 2,000 points battery. You're allowed to pick, dare I say it, 3 stratagems from anywhere that you want. So I'm going to say, right, I'm playing BL10 Craft World. I'm going to take Wrath of the Shrines. I really like that stratagem. And then I'm going to take, and then I'm going to consult in here. And you might say, well, I'm running a unit of, let's say I'll take Phantasm here for my redeploy, and then I've got a unit of Fire Dragons I want to do really well on the battlefield, so I'm going to give them fusion charges here. So then you take your stratagems, my 3, and then let's say that you're allowed to take some core stratagems as well. So your command reroll, your auto pass them out, those are all available, and you can string those stratagems out with your army deployed, keep them at the side of the board with your cards, and then you just use those throughout the game. So then you're not consulting with the book, your mind's not strained like, what was the stratagem, what one, flicking around and so on and so on. You've got your nice stratagems there. They're the ones that you've chosen. So similar to the way you select a warlord trait, you select a relic. The diversity is there in the book, but as far as running your game is concerned, it's simplified by just having to pick a particular number. So say 3 plus the core stratagems are available, which you can memorize those off by heart, no problem at all, and they're in the core book. By putting that limit on there, that means that none of this is obsolete now. You can keep your codex, keep all the variety. Games Workshop can produce as many stratagems and as many appendices and extra books as they wish, because at the end of the day, you're picking 3 or picking however many. And so the variety is there, but the actual play of your game is nice and straightforward. And so you develop, same way as you work on your warlord traits and relics, what works for you in games. You may come away from a game saying, I never use that fusion charges stratagem, it's a waste of time. So as I'm just thought of another mechanic here, we'll come back to it in just a moment. So I never use the fusion charges, waste of time. I'm going to swap it out for, and then you pick a different one. So you are still really meditating on stratagems, but all of that is done pre-game, and then you just go. You have your strategems set out, and then you just roll straight into your battle. I think it'd be a lot more straightforward. And just something popped into my mind here. What about if you got your command points? Say you've got 6 command points ready to go, and then before the game begins, spend a CP on a stratagem. I don't know if this would work. I'm going to say it and then we'll throw it out there. So you spend your CP on it straight away on the fusion charges, pay a CP pre-game, you get that stratagem, and then you just use that as many times as you need, perhaps once per turn. So then you've paid for it once in CPs and you just have it sitting there and you can use it. So use a stratagem in the fight phase and a Fire Dragons unit for only selected fights. That might happen, say, twice in the game. So because you paid for that stratagem, you just get it as many times as you need during the battle. So that's one way of doing it, but that's just a suggestion that just came into my mind. But I think the best fix is either dump stratagems entirely, because they just bloat the game out and just disrupt the flow of the enjoyment flow of the game. A game is nice when you're just flowing from one turn to the next, and you just, most like 95% of your time is you looking at the board and rolling dice and so on. Minimal consultation with the rules just accelerates the game. It makes it a lot more fun. So that's, I think, the strongest way to do it. Or the other option is to just put a limit on stratagems, and you pre-game select the ones that you want to use, and that means that you can do your consultation with the book before you play your battle, declare what stratagems you're going to use, and then you don't have to keep looking at the book, sifting through, trying to find your stratagems. It limits deadly combos as well, because if you're taking 3, then it's going to limit you from trying to find a multi-stack stratagem combination. By doing that also means that you're keeping as much variety. It means the Games Workshop can continue to produce stratagems, no problem, because the limit's there, regardless of how many stratagems are actually available. Perhaps that's the biggest change I'm going to propose here in this video. See what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. The final point, number 3. I think there'll be some agreement on this one. Again, I'm interested to see what people have to say. Number 3 is simplify the missions. The missions are too complicated. Again, I'd say the most annoying part of the game for me at the moment is organising and setting up a mission. Just it's tedious and aggravating. So that's my my view at the moment. So let's give you an example. Yeah, right. So it's a random one here. So we've got an incursion mission here called Deliverance. So we'll break this down. So you have, this is your deployment zone here. So I have no issue with any of this at all. The variety of deployment zones, absolutely fine. The positioning of your objectives, no problem at all. You can set the table up, mark those out. Easy, anyone can do that, no problem at all. So that's not a problem. So then you come to your mission rules. So you get a Battleforge CP. There's new rules for that, so you can cut all that kind of stuff out of CPs or just leave it as it is. So you've got drop zone repleted. In this mission, 2 objective markers will be removed from the battlefield as follows. Start of the 3rd battle round, the defender randomly selects 1 objective marker. So now you've got to remember on the 3rd turn, you need to randomly remove an objective marker. There's no man's land, and it needs to be a gamma objective marker. Then at the start of the 4th battle round, the gamma objective marker is removed from the battlefield, so you've got to do the rules for that. At the start of the 5th battle round, the beta objective marker has to be removed. So there's that to remember. Then for primary objectives, you've got take and hold, the control of 1 or more objective markers, you get 4 points, 2 or more, 4 points, 3 or more, not 4 points on top of that. And then, so that's okay, but then on top of that, they've now started to add a second part of the primary objective. So you've then got secure landing sites. At the end of each player's turn, the player's turn scores a number of victory points for each objective marker they control in no man's land, as shown on the table below. So you've then got to consult this table. So on turn 3, victory points per objective marker in no man's land control is 2 points, and so on and so forth. So you've got all of that. Then on top of that, you've then got to pick 3 secondaries. So then you have to go to your standard secondaries. Purge the enemy, no respites, you've got like no prisoners and so on. Bring it down, And then you've also got, on top of that, your faction secondaries. So you have to go to those. So imagine it's pre-game here. I'm trying to get organised. I'm trying to pick the right secondaries to match the mission. So I'm playing Necrons. These are my 4. And then I say, right, I like Code of Combat. That sounds really good. Oh, but it's Purge Enemy. So hang on a second. Put it back here. Make sure this Purge Enemy doesn't conflict with the standard Purge Enemy, which I may have taken. So I go back here. Where's Purge Enemy? So I have to find it. Oh no, I took Assassination. So hang on a second. I can't take Purge Enemy. And then it just becomes this trying to figure out your secondaries. For me, it's tedious. It's a shame, and it's not the rules as such. It's just because there's so much stuff going on. It takes the enjoyment out of the missions, and sometimes to the point in some games where we've like neglected we've forgot about or neglected some of the secondaries or some parts of the primary mission, or you forget chunks of it, and then you've missed out on points. And again, it's not because of the rules being too complicated. But instead of focusing on, say, this little special rule here for this mission, it's this and this and this, and then these three from here as well, and it just becomes too much. So what is the solution to that is the question. So what I propose is that the missions are simplified. Other editions, perhaps the missions were too simple and they became a bit repetitive, so fair enough, Games Workshop have added diversity, but I think they've overdone it and it's just added too much bloat again as far as the missions are concerned. So trying to find a balance between simplicity, so you know what your mission is and it's nice and straightforward, but keeping a bit of diversity, a bit of interest to it, so you can go for all different kinds of combinations constantly. So this is how I would change things on these. The silly little extra rules I would try and get rid of. So for example, try and do something where, say you secure landing sites here, and just try and simplify that as much as possible. So try and merge that in a way where it's quite straightforward. So let's give you an idea of a mission here. So you roll up your mission, it's deliverance. You got take and hold, you control more objectives, one or more, two or more, and then more than the opponent, nice and straightforward. Then you got secure landing sites. So you've got to grab the objectives before they disappear. Turn 3, 4, and 5, you're going to lose one each, a random one of the no man's land objectives. Nice and straightforward. Then you go on to secondaries. So what you have is like a chart with the standard secondaries. You're going to roll up for 2. So let's say we rolled up and we got assassination. Both players are on assassination, so you're trying to destroy each other's characters. Then you roll up again for the second one, you get grind them down. So you're trying to destroy more units than what you lose. You get 3 points doing that. You're both on that as well. So both of you know you're going for assassination and grind them down. Nice and straightforward. And then you get to pick one yourself, which is from your faction options across here. So you're playing Chaos Space Marines and you got Emperor's Children, and then you say, yep, I'm going to take Adorn the Canvas Electric, and you choose that one, and that's your themed one. Nice bit of fluffy themed secondary for the battle. If you don't like this one here, you can roll up a third one from your standard secondary, something like that. But it just simplifies the whole thing down. I think if you've got people picking all these secondaries all over the place, and you've got 2 themed secondaries with all the details in there, plus details in here, it's just too much. So that's how I think you could streamline things. I just think there's too much going on here, too much stuff to remember. Because you lay your armies out, you're ready to play a game, and you say, right, we're going to figure out a mission. So you randomise your mission, you set out the mission, you check the rules to the mission, and then you say, right, now we need to go and pick our secondaries, and you're thumbing through the book. What secondaries is it I need? What was that one? You're going through them, and you're gradually building up your secondary, and it's tedious. It does take time. And that's for us playing like pretty regular for the channel. I wonder what it's like for people who play, once a month or once a fortnight, and they're not buried in the books, knowing the rules particularly well. It must be even more of a tedious thing for them. So that's the kind of people I feel sorry for, ones that are younger or not as regular playing 40k. Or maybe you are regular playing 40k and it's still tedious going through all the secondaries and missions and so on, just too complex. Now the rules are such, like this particular rule here, I'm sure it's a decent rule, it's not too bad. Most of the rules, it seems, Games Workshop are coming up with are fine. It's just that there's so much stuff going on, and that's where we're getting this phrase, this bloating going on with 9th editions. I would simplify the missions. It means you can say, right, here's the mission, know what's going on, and when you know what the plan is, and it's much more enjoyable, and the opponent knows what's going on, things are kept nice and simple. Then you can focus on, instead of the depth of the mission and the stratagems, and that's where your mind and your thinking is all at. Instead, it's with the units and what they can do and their abilities is where you want the depth and enjoyment as far as the diversity is concerned. So those are the 3 changes that I would make. Dump the command phase, roll it into the movement phase. The second change is a big one, dump stratagems entirely, or put a pretty strict limit on stratagems. So say you can pick 3 and then have some core stratagems that are available in every mission as well. And then the third point is to simplify the missions. There's way too much going on with the missions, too much as far as secondaries is concerned. trying to think of ways where books aren't being made obsolete by these drastic changes taking place. So for missions, I'd simplify the main mission, and then have fixed shared secondaries, say 2, that you roll up together, randomise, and you both get those assassination and grind them down, and you're both on that, nice and straightforward, and then you get to pick one themed secondary for your games. That simplifies things, keeps the variety there, and hopefully makes a more streamlined experience as far as choosing a mission is concerned. So that's the video. I think the comment section is going to be big for this one, so leave your comments and suggestions. My 3 points that I've made: dumping the command phase, what do you think of that? Dumping stratagems or putting a strict limit on them, what do you think of that idea? And then number 3, simplifying the missions, what do you think of that as well? Do you agree that those are areas that are too complicated and could be done away with or shrunk right down? Or maybe you say no, 9th edition is completely fine, you love the complexity and so on. But I think, and the other point I've made, which is about the mechanics of the game, I think it works fine. And it's just these sort of bloaty areas that just need a little bit of the gas vented out of them, just to shrink them down a bit, because it's sort of distracting away from the enjoyment of the entirety of the game. Because I think 9th edition is a great edition of 40k. The game plays fine, but its time's being sapped, and people's attention's being sapped when diverted away into stratagems and complex missions and so on. So if that could be simplified, I think we'd have a much better edition of Warhammer 40,000. I'm not sure what Games Workshop are going to do with 10th and when it's coming along and so on. If you know any details about that, then leave that in the comments section. But those are the changes that I would propose if I was to revise 9th edition, just to cut out as much of the bloat as possible. But leave your own comments and feedback. If you've enjoyed the video, then do leave a thumbs up as well. It's much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then do subscribe. If you want bonus content from the channel, then do become a channel member. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time.